you can tell in the sound that throughout COVID, we spent a lot of time really like experimenting and getting to know each other as musicians.
Hello and welcome to Where the Living Room Used to Be, a podcast about Rhode Island's music scene. Hey everyone, it's James. On this episode, I sat down with musician and co-founder of Focal, Matt O'Brien. Had a lot of fun talking with him, and we covered a lot, including the interesting way he got his first drum set, the numerous bands he's played in over the years, as well as what went into starting the art gallery Focal, and what they're looking to achieve with this space. Plus, one of Matt's bands, Passionplay, recently put out a phenomenal new release entitled Sinking, and we discussed the recording process of this album, working with Roach Ranch Recordings, and the evolution of the band's sound. Thanks so much for checking this out. Please subscribe wherever you're listening right now, as I'll be putting out some mini episodes with Matt over the coming weeks. And follow along on Instagram using the handle @LivingRoomUTB to see some show photos, flyers, and more from Matt's time in music.
What got me into music was a bit of my parents. Both of my parents are musicians. My dad plays drums. Cool. My mom was a singer in like a grungy cover band back in the 90s, late 80s. And so growing up, we always had like a solid collection of good heavy metal and metal records and tapes and CDs in the house. And then really what got me into the underground and more niche territories of music was my older brother Darren, who really went down the rabbit hole heavy. He's about 5 years older than me. 4 years older than me. Thank you. He's off in the background. He's up here visiting from Atlanta. But yeah, he was in bands before me and got into thrash and metal and death metal and brutal shit. And really, we shared a room forever. And oh man, I'm making him blush right now. Pretty much every fucking night growing up was we'd throw South Park on the TV, and then also just to add extra chaos into the mix, he'd have his computer playing like Deicide and Dying Fetus and Cannibal Corpse and shit throughout the night, and Cradle of Filth. And I was like I was younger than 10 years old trying to fall asleep listening to listening to that shit.
Was that done on purpose? Was it to like, I don't know, just kind of fuck with you?
It might have been like
try to fall asleep, you little bro. Just listen to
it might have been some psychological torture or some obliviousness. Or you do fall asleep
and you kind of have this in your background of like demons sound like shit.
Yeah. So that being said, my dad being a drummer, he always had a drum set in the house, and Darren being into metal, and also he got into guitar pretty early, and started a thrash death metal influenced band called Genocide Evolve, which we ended up spurring off of and starting my first band, my first real band, Forced to Dwell, that actually had a like solid recording and everything.
And when was that?
That was, I was like maybe 15 or 16 when we wrote our first track. And then we continued and finished our EP when I was like 17, 18, and Darren was like 20, 21, maybe. he's giving me the nod over there. So, yeah, but his first couple of albums were really what got me into playing heavier music, because, I mean, I did like the talent show in elementary school. I played fucking like Nirvana for my 3rd grade talent show. Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
Drum set collapsed on me.
Wow. Okay.
And they shut
like because of the hardware.
Yeah, it was
like
bad hardware.
Yeah, yeah.
My dad bought the kit with a 30 rack when he was like 18
like he
years old.
Traded the 30 rack for the drum sets.
Yeah, back in the 80s or something.
Yeah.
And traded a 30 rack of something for a shitty drum kit. And
because even the best beer that comes in a 30 pack is only worth so much.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So there is a range from like Genesee to whatever, but it can only, it taps out at not a very good drum set.
I imagine that it was probably Bush, because he's been a big Bush fan for his entire life. But yeah, I still use that same drum throne of his from when he was 18. It was a used drum throne. I still use the same ride and the same hi-hats that he had.
I dig it. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet that those have been with me throughout the entirety.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yeah. And where did you grow up? Like what?
Deep River, Connecticut.
Okay.
Middle of fucking nowhere. No, but I was in a couple of like punk bands back then too, and played a lot of like pop punk and top 40 shit, because I was one of the only drummers in the area.
So you were just like, oh, we got to get Matt because he has a drum set. So.
Sure. Yeah. So I pretty much had a endless supply of music if I was willing to play. Mm-hmm. And then when that
had to have helped you in some way, of even if it would not.
Oh yeah.
Precisely what you wanted to do, at least builds that skill. And
I got constant practice, and and it ended up. Between my original punk band, which started off as a band called Narsauce when I was 13, and then we changed into a bunch of different names. Forced to Dwell with my brother Darren, which was a 2-piece thrash death metal band, and then immediately started filling in for this band Flapjack Attack, and then became their full-time drummer. It was just a guitarist and singer that would play with a drum machine. And so I was about 18 years old, and our first show was kind of like a guerrilla show at this spot called Scottish Dave's, where we heard that the owners weren't going to be in until a certain time, and we just went in and set up.
Okay.
And like in 10 minutes banged out like 10 or 12 songs and then got kicked the fuck out of there. But then eventually we were allowed to like essentially be residents there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And definitely had a part in shortly after that, I don't know if it was us or this band Easy Killer, whose guitarist worked there. But they ended up getting a stage built and actual like nice proper sound and stuff. So it was really cool to just go from absolutely nothing to something there.
A venue.
And then life complications, depression, fucking the heroin epidemic, and all that shit led me to want to search for something else somewhere else. And got the hell out of Deep River. Tried to move to Boston. Boston was too expensive. So ended up here in Providence. And that was, I'm on like 7 years and a month now. So that was when I was 20. Still played with Flapjack for a little bit. That was like a thrash punk metal crossover band.
Yeah.
We went more into like thrash metal, almost grindy territory just as we progressed. The commute got to be a little bit too much for me because we were practicing in New London and I was living up here.
Okay, yeah.
So an hour commute for that.
Yeah.
So I quit. They found a different drummer for about 2 years, and I rejoined, and we started taking off from there, getting a lot more shows, a lot bigger shows. Played with like Green Jello or Green Jelly or whatever they're being called by now. Murphy's Law. We had a show with them. Bunch of great local shows. Ended up playing like Skatopia in Ohio, which was a mess, but pretty good. Then finally, like after maybe like a year or so of living here, ended up going to Funky Jungle, and I saw Empty Vessels, who was like a favorite Connecticut band of mine since I was like 16.
Cool.
Playing with Worst Days.
All right,
And I was like, holy shit, like people are playing this kind of music here. I really want to play this kind of music. I hadn't had that opportunity, like the more power violence, screamo-y, like emo violence, chaotic, hardcore kind of stuff. So me, Matt, and Josh ended up living together maybe like a year or two after that. And then complications happened with Worst Days, and it seemed to open everybody up for new jams.
Okay.
So me and Matt started writing together. We had a couple of practices with a band called Atua Saudade that was essentially like the light version of Matt's new band, Amitié.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We had a little bit of it, like similar screamo stuff.
Because this is Matt from Illuminate My Heart.
Yeah. Matt Morales from Amitié and Worst Days and so many other bands. He really was one of the first people that I connected with on screamo out here.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big like fan of Orchid, Page 99, all that same early 2000s, just late 90s chaos.
Yeah.
Whatever inspired those boys to be so sad, you know? And then Just Flesh started basically because Marcy, Josh Marcy from Riotous Outburst, made a post on Facebook being like, oh, I want to start a punk band. And a couple of my friends commented on it, and then it ended up becoming something so fucking cool that like that started off essentially as like a joke, like a shit post on Facebook. Okay. And we were all collectively like, yeah, I'd be in that. And then maybe like a month later, we had our first practice, and it was a full band. It was me on drums, Caleb Horton on guitar, who's a great guitarist, great blues guitarist, great acoustic. He's excellent. He loves he loves a lot of music, and he and Marcy had a band called Cross Arm Calculator that was essentially like almost like a Giraffes Terramelos style band. It wasn't exactly on par with that, but it had potential to build up to that, you know? And also one of the first bands that I saw in Providence at AS220, and I was like, holy shit. There's just madness happening around here, you know? Because before that, I had only been exposed to like, you know, cover bands and and popular, like pop music kind of shit. Besides, like, if me and my brother were gonna go to like see Guar or like any other death metal band somewhere in the like hour radius.
You'd have to drive.
Exactly. Because especially in Deep River, there's nothing venue-wise. If you want to see a good band, you got to drive, or at least back then, you had to drive 45 minutes solid.
Yeah.
Like, if not an hour.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, the Rhode Island scene, like the Providence punk and noise scene has just been
absolutely
like a huge flag in the ground since, obviously Lightning Bolt and Fort Thunder and everything.
Absolutely,
so, yeah. That's cool.
So, anyways, to continue on about that, so Marcy was in that also with Caleb. He had David Carradine, who I had seen years prior. Worst Days, of course, a bunch of different projects. And then our bassist, who was essentially the primary writer for Just Flesh.
Okay.
He wrote guitar, bass, and programmed drums to everything. And he had this whole queue of songs that we all learned together based off of what he had programmed. And he was in... He's pretty shy, so you might have to pry out of him that he was in the band Howl. He was on Relapse Records.
Okay. Yeah.
He was in St. Jude.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, with a bunch of the like local big time folks.
Obviously, Tor Johnson Records.
Yeah, exactly. And he was. He's joked a couple of times about how like several projects of his in the past he's like moved on and then immediately was replaced by like George Radford from Drop Dead and such. She Rides, all that. But yeah, so it was like really cool. I mean, I've also been listening to like Relapse bands forever too. Mm-hmm. So just being in a band and like also getting to know Rob as a person was like so like surreal for me at first. I mean, now he's just like a straight up homie.
Yeah, no, I just say it's Rob.
He was just in here hanging out the other day, and it's pretty funny, you know. Just the way that the Providence scene works and how much everybody has participated in for the entirety of their careers, you know. Like I couldn't name all the bands that Josh was in, or Matt was in, or Alan, our guitarist for Passion Play, was in. I don't even know all of the projects.
Family tree of that comes off of this.
Yeah,
is vast.
It's so crazy and also so incestuous, but.
And yeah, with Just Flesh, that was dual vocals as well. So
yep, Josh and Mary. Mary's a good friend of mine who I think she had a project long ago that didn't really come to fruition, but I guess you could easily refer Just Flesh as her first like real performances as a singer, and she did so well. She was so. You know, she was a bit shy at first, and our first show, it was just like a totally different person.
Oh, really?
You know, she was a good friend of ours. I met her at the Funky Jungle, and I mean, just like that group was a nice group of tight friends. And we were just fucking around playing street punk. Like, it wasn't anything particularly challenging for all of us. We just played it because we wanted to. You know, it was a lot of fun. And then we recorded that album on GarageBand together.
Oh, okay.
Rob literally went out and bought like mics and an interface so we could record that in his garage.
Yeah. And you did some mixing on that, right? Is that
a little bit? Yeah, I have mixing credits, but only because I was just like sitting behind Rob, looking at the computer, being like, "No, that's not right. That's not right."
Okay. Yeah, just bring it out.
Yeah.
If you have, you know,
Rob did essentially all of the engineering on that.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, like my old band, again, going back to like Narsos. When I was 13 and my guitarist was 12 and my other bandmates were also like 12 and 13, we also recorded some shit in GarageBand and then FL, but we didn't know what the hell we were doing, you know? So, yeah, but that was, Just Flesh was like the first time that like I tried to take like engineering, quote, unquote, seriously on my end. And I think for what it's worth, we got like a decent punk album out of it. You know?
Yeah.
About that same time is when me and Alan got linked up. Also, Alan Haig, the guitarist of Passionplay, he was the guitarist of Worst Days and Ask the Dead, and a couple other projects in the past. He's also done work with Strange Famous Records, Sage Francis's record label, the hip hop realm, the like super political hip hop realm. Which is some of my favorite hip hop.
Yeah.
Also,
Strange Famous is amazing. Yep.
Yeah. So it was a real honor to be asked by him to play music together. And we pretty much got linked up because of that the Boston Free Speech rally.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That happened back. Was that like 2017 or something like that?
Yeah.
Where like 15 people showed up to rally for, quote, free speech, and then like 30,000 people showed up to shut them down.
Yeah.
Because they weren't rallying for free speech, they were rallying for hate speech. So I had known him from living with Matt and Josh, and through Worst Days and stuff, and we went up together for that, and just, you know, between that and what followed, we connected real well, and then maybe like a year or two after that, he had asked me to track drums for an album that he wanted to record. He got asked by somebody in the B film industry that I'm not going to name because I don't want to give him any credit at all. Just a dude that used his status to totally to essentially just, he used it as leverage and made it sound like he had so many legit connections.
Wow.
And but because of that, me and Alan got linked up.
Yeah.
And Alan recruited me for that. We wrote an album that was like pretty good, not our best, but it was like hastily written.
And this was for like a movie soundtrack? Is that?
No, it was for, he claimed that he had like connections to, I mean, it all seemed very legit.
Yeah.
But it seemed like we would have had a good shot to play Wacken.
Okay.
In Germany.
Yeah.
Which at that time I was so blinded by that name drop that I was willing to do it. You know? And also knowing Alan, knowing how trustworthy of a person he is, like was totally on board with him, you know? And we wrote that album. That guy ended up being a flake, tried to convince us to pay for a whole bunch of stuff up front.
Oh yeah, I've had
unfortunately
had that type of thing too. Well, I'll put your record out if you just pay me some money first.
Oh yeah. So we saw right through that and switched gears.
Yeah.
And stopped writing for him and started writing for ourselves. Mm-hmm. We cannibalized a couple of songs from that album. We played one show. The singer didn't even show up to it. What? It was at the Morgue. I don't know if you.
No,
remember.
I've never.
It was a spot up the street on North Main that you know, it was a DIY spot. But yeah, we had a show opening for like Time and Pressure and Chemical Fix, and it was like a really, really sweet show. But like literally 2 hours before it, he told us that he couldn't make it. It was our first show.
Wow.
And so we played an instrumental hardcore set and had Pat Pepper, who's the drummer of Moisturizer and was the bassist of Miss Invader.
Okay.
Really just incredibly talented kid. He played bass on that. It was a really fun set, but it was very eye-opening on like what we really wanted to focus on, especially like hearing those tracks instrumentally. Like they could have been filled out so much more. So me and Alan started writing separately as a two-piece, and that's what became Passion Play.
Okay, yeah.
And then we recruited Joshua Connell, who played bass in David Carradine with Josh Marcy, who was the singer of Just Flesh. My band Flapjack Attack played with God's Middle Finger all the time in Connecticut, and Joshua played bass in that.
Okay.
And they filled in on a couple of shows on bass with Flapjack Attack too. So me and Joshua had like an established history together. And so it was really just so amazing to be a three-piece with them. And then we got Paul on vocals. We recorded that first album together. It was a good album, but we were all still trying to find our our sound.
The chamber, right?
With Dan Sawyer and Mark Palin, great audio engineers. Can't thank them enough for the time and effort that they put into our first album. Also, like just at the brink of COVID is when we were wrapping up recording. So we got all the instrumentals done, like maybe the week before COVID shut everything down.
Okay.
And because of that and medical complications, we couldn't record vocals until like a couple months later.
Okay.
So...
because that came out October 2020, right?
Yeah. You
did that with.
We recorded guitar, drums, and bass in like February of 2020. So and I mean we had a lot of things working against us that year, COVID especially, and also
because had you played as a band like
we played
like shows did you do as Passion Play before really even that?
I mean, as Passion Play probably one because our first show we were actually called Sinking, and which is the name of
there you go, yeah.
the album that we just released.
Yeah.
We were called Sinking, and literally we were about to play a basement show, and they were going to promote our first show, and they tagged Sinking in the post about it, but it turned out that there was another like kind of hardcore-ish band out of Western Massachusetts called Sinking.
Okay.
And that band got tagged.
And they're like, we're not playing the show, or
we didn't hear anything from them, but somebody noticed it, and we were like, holy shit, we have to change our fucking name at this show. So we had dabbled with passionplay as one of our names, and we decided that night to change it. Mm-hmm. And if you're not familiar with the passionplay is a theatrical depiction of Christ's Passion, which is like the crucifixion, the final days leading up to Christ's crucifixion.
Yeah, okay.
Which are especially brutal.
Yeah.
And it's often, it's in theater portrayed as definitely a tragedy. Mm-hmm. And also we are all heavily influenced by tragedy in one way or another, whether it's the theatrical personification of it or the band Tragedy.
Okay.
Just tragedy in general is the primary motivator behind the band. Yeah, so we played as passionplay with Paul for a while. Things didn't work out, and ended up really just truly finding our voice and our sound with, we had started writing the album prior to Brian joining the band.
Okay, so Sinking, you were already working on that with Paul.
We were already working on that, and had Sinking as tentative title for the album. And the title being just essentially a metaphor for like the collapse of society and climate and politics and everything, where sinking is like it's like facing impending doom, but it's not necessarily the end. And,
yeah.
And
it's not like an immediate thing. Like there's
exactly.
Yeah.
And with sinking, there's always hope and the effort to survive in it. So we started with that as the theme, and took that to come up with the sound for the album, and just went with our first album is definitely a bit melancholy.
Okay.
But I feel like Sinking is much more focused on the melancholy. Like, we all have very similar backgrounds musically, similar interests, similar influences, but we all also listen to so many different types of music. And really, aren't going for anything in particular. And like, for example, haunting this empty page, the little polyrhythm beat that I do, that's a little drum beat that I've been playing since I was maybe 12 years old.
Oh, really?
Just the 3/4 hand time signature, but alternating back and forth between different drums. And then one day I found like, oh, if I just straightforward do this between a cymbal and the snare instead of toms, it sounds like pretty clever.
Yeah.
And with the way that Alan writes guitars, he leaves so much dead space, there's so much just like blank negative space that it gives me so much freedom to just fill it in. With whatever. And so that track in particular came about just mostly like just fucking around at practice, and he like presented that riff, and I was just like, just doing the D beat, and then he like had that dead space and was like, nah, 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 nah. And I was like, let's see what I can, and then it just worked out that way, but we again, we take a lot of influence from a lot of different bands, but I'd say mostly in like the prog, math rock, mathcore, just chaotic hardcore realm. And also I listen to a lot of math rock and a lot of jazz also.
Okay.
And that part in particular, and just the dead space that he allows, has really, like, honestly, like, made me feel comfortable with kind of like stepping forward, because I never really felt comfortable with like stepping forward as a drummer. I always wanted to just be like in the background, playing in the pocket kind of things, Besides playing as a two-piece with my brother, like that was the only other opportunity that I had back in the day to kind of like branch out, because we had a lot of ground to cover as a two-piece, But
yeah, you're able to do that a lot more now, I'd say.
Yeah, and just having Joshua be the bassist that they are, and like having the funk and jazzy background has just made for. I mean, Joshua was on our first EP too, but you can tell in the sound that throughout COVID we spent a lot of time really like experimenting and getting to know each other as musicians.
Yeah, is that when you started writing a lot of the new album? Was it during lockdown in a sense?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much lockdown happened, and we decided to stop practicing as a band and start trying to shoot for like an internet project, essentially.
Oh, okay.
And so we tried the whole Zoom thing. Me and Alan played a couple of practices over Zoom, and just we couldn't get I mean, there's the latency with the phone calls and with everything, so timing didn't really work out or anything. So finally I was just like, Alan, could you email us all just riffs?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I think I could do that. And then like the next day sent us like 11 tracks. And we're like, okay, I guess we'll try to figure these out.
Yeah.
And some of them made it to syncing, and some of them are tracks that we have on the back burner for our what will be our third album, or third EP, hopefully full length.
Okay.
First full length, hopefully coming out early to mid next year.
Okay.
2023. So yeah, it didn't work out over Zoom, didn't work out over phone call, over internet.
Yeah.
So finally me and Alan decided to just play on opposite ends of his basement.
Yep. Yeah.
As a 2-piece again, and wrote a majority of the tracks like that, and then Joshua learned those.
Do you work on the composition of the songs together essentially?
The composition.
He'll kind of present these riffs, and you will arrange them in a sense, and then present it to the rest of the bands after that.
Yep. And also definitely wanted to go heavier than the first album, but also wanted to go more melodic, but also wanted to go more noisy, but also wanted to go, in every different direction.
Yeah.
So, we took a lot of influence from, of course, Converge, Dillinger Escape Plan, Botch, a lot of melodic hardcore bands, including locals such as Verse and stuff like that. Yeah. And really just found home with this album, definitely. And I can confidently say that not only do I currently listen to these tracks, but also if I wasn't playing in this band, this is music that I would listen to. So I'm really thoroughly pleased with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I actually say it a lot in the interviews that I do, but, with the bands that I play in, that's the target for me now, is writing an album that I would listen to. And
absolutely.
Because to be honest, there was a lot of time that I didn't do that. There was times I was oh, this is what might get a good response from the crowd, or this is what I think a label might like, or this is whatever, and it was still fine. I didn't, I've never played in a band that I hated or anything like that, but it was still now I just write records that starts with me, and then hopefully other people like it. And, but yeah, it's a much more fulfilling way. But that does come through, if you're writing that and you're writing that for you, Matt, and everyone else in Passion Play, honestly, it legit is one of my favorite releases of this year. I've listened to it so much, and and a lot of the stuff that you talked about comes through, as a fan of those bands that you mentioned. And, again, I mean this as the highest compliment, but one of my favorite bands is Weak Teeth. And,
amazing, yeah.
I get some of those pieces from this, and it's a great record.
Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, can you talk a little bit more of now working with Brian and recording at
Roach Ranch?
Yeah, which he's a part of that studio, and how did that come about, and what was your experience recording this album?
So for starters, we had played a show with Panzer Chocolate, and I had seen Panzer Chocolate a couple of times before, which is Brian and Marina. They are, as of last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, married.
Congratulations.
Yes, I'm very happy for them. They're just one of the most seamless couples I've ever seen. Both so talented. But actually, before recording Passion Play was Cerebral Prolapse. We recorded our first 3 tracks with Brian in his basement.
Yeah, which you're the singer of.
Yes. I am the singer of Cerebral Prolapse. And the reason that I want to bring it up is just because of going from not really knowing Brian at all to having so much trust and faith in him that I haven't experienced that kind of.
It just kind of clicked in a sense. Yeah.
Me and him totally hit it off, but also just his love for music and harsh music especially shined through in that recording process. And just how quickly, because Roach Ranch, it was his basement, it was the basement of his and Marina's home. And And leading up to that, you know, I didn't really know him too well, so I didn't know what to expect. And it was just so professional, so organized, so clean. The way that, you know, the way he puts things together on the computer even was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I can't believe how fast he's like, I mean, all that stuff, Cerebral and passionplay, all that was recorded in Reaper. And I think, I don't know if it was the official version or the free version.
Yeah.
But either way, it's Reaper nonetheless, not FL, not like any of those fancy programs, you know.
Yeah.
But he just threw that shit together so fast, and it sounded so good. Like first mix.
Yeah, it sounds.
I was like, holy shit. How did this happen? You know, because Cerebral started off as like mostly me, Josh Collins, and Joshua had talked about just starting like a throwaway death metal project.
Okay, like just something for fun, just to...
Yeah, because I've wanted to do vocals for a while.
Okay.
And I've mostly been known as a drummer, so I keep finding myself as a drummer in different bands.
Yeah.
But for a long time now, I've wanted to try vocals because I've got just this whole stockpile of poetry that I've been writing since I was in middle school, you know?
Okay.
Because I was a sad boy back then. So I actually used like some of my poetry as Cerebral lyrics. And Josh found his buddy Tyler, who's our drummer and who's now the drummer of the Bimbos, who had never played in a death metal band before, had always played in pop punk bands because, again, he was like the only local drummer for his area, and found himself in all those kinds of bands. Yeah. And I think he also played bass or guitar. Tyler, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. I can't remember which one you played, bass or guitar. But bottom line is he had never been in a death metal band or power violence band as a drummer. And so we started this band under the pretense that it was going to be just like this throwaway shit project that we were just fucking around, and we were going to record a couple of tracks and then probably not do anything with anything.
Yeah.
And
like even play, you were just play out, or you were just like, let's just record and...
Barely even like an idea of playing out at the beginning. We just wanted to fuck around as friends, you know? And it actually... ended up working, and I mean, like Josh Collins is a machine with writing riffs. Like all of his riffs are just 1,000 riffs in one, just jammed together. And somehow Tyler, who started off as an inexperienced drummer in that realm, just found a way to make it work. And Joshua added their flair as like the funky, slappy shit, but also playing along with Josh's technical riffs. And also I was able to like find my voice as a vocalist, see which realm worked best. Because at first I wanted to do the like super low gutturals and ended up giving myself laryngitis trying to...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was reaching beyond my limits there, and actually like had to go to the fucking hospital and couldn't speak for a couple of weeks after like the second cerebral prolapse practice.
Yikes.
Yeah. So I was like, mid-range and highs are good.
Stick there.
Yeah. And occasionally I do the low stuff, but I don't know. I use like more tunnel throat technique now and trying to get that more like weird abrasive sound than like a true death metal sound.
Yeah.
Which puts us more in like the gory power violence realm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to death metal.
Yeah.
which I think works for us. So anyways, all of this said, Cerebral Prolapse is the first experience that me and Joshua, who also plays bass in Passion Play, had with Brian. Mm-hmm. And then when we were up for a new singer, it was just a natural, like, go-to response to find Brian. Mm-hmm. And Brian, being in Panzer Chocolate at that time, playing mostly guitar, wanted the opportunity at like a vocalist position. So he was immediately down. And then we wrote we finished up the album together and then recorded it in his basement. And he spent so much time editing and producing and engineering. He did all the noise on the album, all the little added, like, very subtle things that maybe you picked up on, maybe not, just like the little bells and whistles in the background. And also just with the theme of the album being the impending doom, we went for like the Geiger meter clicky noises and like the almost Silent Hill sounding, like ominous, like cosmic dissonance of the noise in the background. Mm-hmm. And then also went with, I can't remember if it was Van Halen or who the hell is it? Not Rusty Cooley, the fucking dude that did the drill to the pickups. Paul Gilbert. There it is. Yeah. Paul Gilbert. Yeah. See, this guy knows. He's a guitarist, and honestly, like, my biggest influences growing up were guitarists. Like, as a drummer, I looked up to all these guitarists like Paul Gilbert and Rusty Cooley and Jeff Loomis, all based on my brother's recommendation. Which were good. It's all checked out. It all holds up to this day. The Paul Gilbert, and I think Eddie Van Halen also used the technique of just the drill next to the pickups to get that. That's what you're hearing mostly in the background of the outro of Sinking.
Okay.
The like siren noise that we have. So just like the weeks to months that it took to like get every last detail that we wouldn't have had if we went to just any recording studio, like that we had the opportunity to work out with Brian was just unreal. And so he really made that album what it is. Yeah. You know?
What about the rest of it? Like, what was your experience recording it? Like, did you just kind of bang it out in a weekend, or was it drawn out as well?
So, yes and no. The reason I say yes and no is because everything that I recorded prior to this, I was kind of constrained to like a couple of hours, like only knowing that I had like 1 to 3 hours to set up, record, track all of the album, and then break down and move aside for everybody else, like whether it was like a 12-hour block in a recording studio or something like that. So really just trying to bang everything out. So this time was really the first time that I got to play a track through, and something that I would have passed as fine in the past was counted as like a loss, you know, and said, let's redo that. Let's get it perfect. So this is the first time I've had the chance to do like multiple takes on an album and really get it like refined, get the timing right, get every last bit of it correct. And not having to do much editing in post besides like trying to find the right snare tone or the right kick tone or toms or levels and whatever. But so pretty much, I mean, Brian spent so much time on that, and also like probably the most mics that I've ever used for a drum recording. I think it was like 16 total.
Wow.
Had everything mic'd up, plus like 4-point microphones, like all evenly spread out around the drums, and then overheads, and then like mics on the top and the bottom of the snare, and just like everything. He thought of absolutely everything and mixed it perfectly. And so as a drummer, this was like by far the best recording experience that I've had. And also with him being part of the band, he was much, much, much more invested in the perfection of it, perfecting it, getting it dialed in and sounding right. So he also had no problem with telling us, like, let's redo that. You know, whereas other people in the past might have said, it's fine.
Whatever you guys want, that's whatever.
So it was a really unique experience. And
And what do you have planned for the release? Like, are you working with a label for that? And
we're working with. So we have some super low key stuff going on with Illuminate My Heart Records. That I can tell you about at some point in the future. Josh Marcy from Just Flesh runs Riotous Outburst. He helped with the cassette layout, graphic design, all that. So it really and he worked with our artist Andrew Gomez from Seattle, getting his artwork laid out in a way that made sense. For cassettes, we're working on CDs, and then eventually vinyl, hopefully. But starting next week, we've got and shirts. Maybe some handbills and some posters and stuff. But starting next week, we're going on tour. We got 14 days locked in, starting in Burlington, Vermont, making our way through New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, got a date in DC, New Jersey, Long Island, a couple dates in Connecticut, kicking it off here at Focal this Friday. And hopefully, I don't think we'll have any pro CDs hooked up by then, but we're gonna just bootleg our own shit and handwrite labels on the CDs for a tour. We'll have some of Andrew Gomez, our artist. He's got a friend that's doing shirts for us that should be in by that time. We're getting I think a test press tape should be in either today or tomorrow. And hopefully it's back to us by the time that we're on tour. If not, I don't know what to tell everybody. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But we've got tons of merch planned, and hopefully all the income goes towards just getting us to the next stop. I mean, we're about to put on a lot of miles on this tour, and then immediately get back here to start planning out the next album.
Yeah.
And we've got about 4 or 5 tracks, like, mostly worked out that are just the only thing that I could compare it to, I guess, is like Car Bomb. Who's like genty, progressive, out there, wild card, chaotic, hard metalcore. It's like if Car Bomb as a band is essentially, to me, just a better Meshuggah, and I love Meshuggah.
Okay. Wow.
It's if like Meshuggah had blast beats and like more noise influence than jazz, but they're definitely just as, if not more, jazzy.
Wow.
So we're trying to branch out in different realms again, and trying to keep it fresh, and mostly just not necessarily trying to please anybody but ourselves on it. You know, and if it works, it works. If he dies, he dies. No, but I'm expecting or anticipating if you liked Sinking, then the next album is going to be a treat to anybody that listens. And it's mostly just, again, us being comfortable.
Yeah, obviously just like solidifying as a band. You know, like, again, just, reiterating your own history of like, didn't get to play a lot of shows, had this release, had it broken up by COVID, so just getting to
COVID and
do
also
more shows. I'm sure after these couple of weeks on the road, you're going to have a different experience, with the...
Also, I want to backtrack a little bit to our first release. It was something that was nearly impossible, like, morally to promote, just with COVID deaths adding up and, like, social justice issues. Like, we were ready to release it, like, at the same time of George Floyd's death, Yeah. And so we just held on to it and put it off. We're like, this is not the fucking time.
So it'd be like, check out my new record.
Yeah, check out my project.
Band. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's not anything that we were trying to do. But I mean, like, day by day, the fucking world gets so much more fucked up. And it's, like, hard to imagine.
It's still hard to do that now,
what's going to come next. So, like on one hand, like, we all are pretty big social justice warriors, advocates for what we believe is right. And we're all pretty active as far as protests and activism goes. That no time ever feels good to be promoting ourselves. So, yeah, even this last album, Sinking, we were sitting on those tracks for a while.
Okay.
And we were mostly just, we just did things out of order and asked for artwork a little too late.
Okay, I gotcha.
And I had to sit on that for a little while, and some other complications came up. But the masters, I forgot to mention Will Killingsworth from Orchid. Is who did our masters. Dead Air Studios. And I mean, he was so quick with it and just added that extra oomph that we couldn't get ourselves, you know.
But yeah, one thing I really want to talk about is, you know, we're here recording in Focal, which is a space that you co-founded, and I'd love to have you talk more about what this is and what you're looking to do and what you have planned for the future with it.
So Focal is it's me and my girlfriend Brianna Payon. She's a local DJ and art enthusiast as I am myself. So we got together back in 2020, and she's nodding. Like, you better not fuck this up. And you know, Brianna had a past of booking a lot of really diverse and just refreshingly strange one-off like techno parties. She like warehouse parties and stuff like that, and also had like a collaborative beer put out a couple of years ago. Me and her had met working at Revival Brewing.
Oh, okay.
We were both in the beer pouring realm there, and she was in sales and was going bar to bar and liquor store to liquor store promoting Revival throughout Massachusetts. That's how she got also involved in that collaborative beer effort, I believe, which was mostly her doing, and it was just as a spectator, as a third party, it was cool to watch that happening, and being a musician, being involved in, I mean, so many different practice spaces and little DIY shit that like never really took off myself. I always admired that, you know. I mean, I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about regarding this, but just like going up to Boston at midnight to catch a rave that was just starting in like a warehouse that she rented like for a couple of weeks or something to a month to prepare for a fucking wild party that just ended up getting shut down by police. It was like, I mean, it's super admirable, you know? So anyways, we had both talked about getting something started just involving the arts, and so we prior to that we started dating and lived together and stuff, and we were looking at spaces all over. And then somehow, miraculously, Brianna came across a spot on Craigslist that was like 2 blocks from our apartment. Oh, okay. Which is where we're sitting right now.
Oh, okay.
And it was just something that she sent me a couple of pictures when she checked it out and was like, before you make your decision, like, come check this place out.
Yeah.
And we came and looked at it, and I was like, fuck. All right. This is it. Like, this is home now, you know?
Yeah.
And so we ended up getting an LLC for an art gallery.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. So Focal is art gallery, collaborative art space, community space. I can't say anything specific. We just, artists come to us, or we seek out artists and host markets, host all sorts of stuff. And it seems to have just become a staple in the community. And I really can't thank everybody enough for all the support and just behaving and and also just the communication that has spread way farther than I could have ever imagined. The amount of artists that reach out to us about booking stuff here.
Oh, really? Cool.
It's endless. And it's also in a building that's got a lot of history too.
Yeah, okay.
And the basement, there was a grindhouse back in the day, run by a couple of friends of mine that I guess was like the Wild West and had some legendary shows back there. Bands like Drop Dead practice here in the back, and then there's Jam Stage over here too, which the dude from Verse, the guitarist from Daughters, they run that shit over there. And that was one of the first places that I practiced with anybody moving out here was Jam Stage. So I totally respect the hell out of what they're doing over there. Jam Stage, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, in Pawtucket, I'm doing a free Jam Stage ad here. They've got units that you can rent out by the hour, very affordable, especially split amongst a whole band. You can practice there. They've got all the equipment set up to do demo recordings. You can bring your own CD and record for free, or pay 50 cents and buy a CD from them at the front desk. They got gear, they got everything.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's good stuff.
It's really good, really respectable, really good, good quality, everything. And definitely can't thank them enough for allowing me a spot to practice for the first couple of years of living out here. And so anyways, that brings us next door to Focal. Just the artist community in Providence, the crossover between visual artistry and musical that happens in the scene, the cross between punk and hip-hop, the cross between punk, hip-hop, and techno, and all that mixed in with noise, and all that mixed in with sculpture, and visual, VJ artwork and animation and stuff. Everybody has so much else going on that it's impossible to narrow down who's doing what, because everybody that's got a creative outlet out here seems to have it's endless. The rabbit hole of each and every individual out here, that it's impossible to showcase what everybody's got going on. So we try to do our best to accommodate to as much as possible, but it's endless.
What do you guys have in the future? Do you guys have any as a company? Is there certain other are there other things that you're striving for with this space? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so Brian, the singer of Passion Play, Roach Ranch, is slowly moving into our front room here.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna have Roach Ranch in-house.
Oh, cool.
We did tons of live streaming throughout COVID. That's died down since everything else picked up. But we plan on still continuing the live stream stuff eventually. We were streaming on Twitch, mostly like DJs and live hip hop, electronic stuff, because at that time I had no idea what the hell I was actually doing with recording live bands.
Oh, okay.
And now I've got a little bit better of an idea, so I would like to experiment with that more. We've got a couple of gallery openings with sculpture and paint. And we try to also host a monthly artist market. Local vendors come in here, and it happens to mostly be like starving artists buying art off of starving artists, or trading and bartering, which is like really cool to watch and witness and curate, because it's all mostly like our friends or friends of friends. I was also surprised with a pool table for my birthday.
Cool.
I plan on hosting a pool tournament very soon. We're pretty broke, so hopefully make that like a fundraiser event. And we also like have this massive wall here and access to our own sound and sound through the guys Jacob and Scott at Symposium Records.
Okay, yeah.
So we've done in the past a couple of small movie screenings, just set up all the couches in the room and watch everything up there with real professional sound. So we hope to bring that back. Some hot, sweaty summer nights, get everybody cramped in here in a COVID-friendly way with the AC blasting. And hopefully I've bugged the Death Drop Gorgeous folks, Brandon, about are you familiar?
No, I'm not. No.
Death Drop Gorgeous is a local horror film that was released within the last year or two. They've got another project that I believe just came out or is about to come out. Hopefully screen some of that. I have a bunch of locals in here for a nice like first viewing of that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Or even if it's Death Drop Gorgeous, I mean, it would just be great. It would just be really great to have that community in here. Local, I mean, it's a very queer oriented film series, and like it's just so cool seeing so many friends of ours just blow up in this kind of way.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I mean, so there's all sorts of stuff that we want to do here. And then...
But it's great because it just sounds like you're just supporting so many people, and, you know, like it's just a great community.
Absolutely.
It seems that you're
I mean, there's
part of and helping to foster by giving them a space to do this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to take any credit for anything that anybody else is doing at all. But the one thing that we can do is hopefully give people a space to really showcase their work, you know? And I mean, it happened this weekend. We had a gallery opening. A local artist was just commissioned by, I believe, the city of Providence or somebody to do with the city of Providence to do a memorial piece for somebody's sculpture. And like, I definitely don't consider that like something that's that at all has to do with us, but at the same time, it's so cool to like have witnessed that interaction happen, you know? But besides that, regarding Focal, we've also got Focus Fest, which isn't announced yet. So nobody besides the few artists that are booked on it knows about Focus Fest. August 13th at Revival.
Okay.
We have the whole Oasis for like 12 hours or something like that.
Awesome.
Back there. And we're planning on doing just kind of like a general summary of what we've done here. Having an artist market happen there. Having just local friends of ours showcase their music, showcase their artwork, showcase all sorts of talents just in one collective setting as opposed to in a weekly or monthly basis. And so, Focus Fest, August 13th.
Nice.
And yeah, I really, I don't know how it's going to turn out. It might be a bust. It might be the best thing that's ever happened. There's no way to tell. All that I can ask for is that people just have a damn good time, you know?
Yeah.
And then plenty of stuff that I would like to talk about, but I can't.
That's perfect. But yeah, I mean, to those that are listening, definitely check out Focal and support them any way that you can. Come to a show, support the artists that show here. And then, to you two, thank you for what you're doing and just keep it up,
Thank you.
It's just a very exciting space to, like what you had just said, the first time that I had come here, it has a very good community vibe to it. As someone, I've been to 1,000 shows, and it feels nice to be in this room and see the bands that you're supporting. So,
don't have anything in here that we don't like. So it's very, with the amount of people that present us with shows, we really don't have all that much time to book our own stuff.
Okay.
So it's mostly been this vetting process.
Okay.
The whole time it's been mostly just this big vetting process of yes, I absolutely 100% want this to happen.
Yeah.
Or no, I absolutely do not want this to happen. See you later,
Yeah.
And then of course there's stuff that overlaps and stuff that I wish could have happened here that didn't.
Yeah.
And stuff
timing-wise or whatever else.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really appreciate that because it's really we're trying to make it pretty curated, and also curating the crowd as well. Because we're not, at the end of the day, we're trying to be just a safe, inclusive space. And our musical backgrounds and conquests are their own thing, but somehow just the personality that crosses over between all of that seems to be true throughout scenes,
Yeah. Well, I have just one more question for you, this part, and it's a big one. You can answer it how you feel.
Yeah.
But, with everything that you've done from the bands you've played in and being a part of running this space, and, what would you say has been your greatest musical accomplishment to this point?
Darren, cover your ears. The recent Passionplay album has definitely. Oh no! Are you crying over there, buddy? If you had been listening before, you would know that my brother, the guitarist of my old band, and still current internet project, Forced to Dwell, is over there. And I gotta say right now in front of his face, because this is how true it is, Passion Play has been the most fulfilling. And especially the recent album, Sinking. Just, I feel incredibly free in expression in everything. I mean, even down to like the artwork was just originally some doodle that I drew up that we went back to Andrew, who drew the first album cover, and we're like, I wish you could make this come to life. And it's the best possible version of this doodle that I could have ever even imagined. You know, the artwork is amazing. The production value and the engineering on the album is amazing. I really, truly feel like we all were able to express ourselves thoroughly on the album. The shows that we've played and the path that has led us to this point has been totally like hit or miss, rocky road. And we have found ourselves in different niche groups of bands that play certain shows, and found that we don't necessarily fit in with anybody directly. You know, we fit in with all these bands, but like by association, by whatever, you know. And it's really cool to have just played in so many different mixed bills, like down to hip hop bills. Like we just played with fucking Dark Time Sunshine and Jesse the Tree. And that was like mind blowing to me, because I mean, I love Jesse. We've played shows together in the past with like Just Flesh and Flapjack and Passion Play also, but like big Dark Time Sunshine fan. Dark Time does tracks with Aesop Rock, huge Aesop Rock fan. I mostly listen to hip hop, to tell you the truth. So it was just surreal to play that same show.
That's cool, yeah.
But it's been super fulfilling. So much dedication, so much trial and error has gone into getting us to where we are right now. And also leading up to tour, like so many months of time and effort have been put into booking this tour. And to just have it come together so seamlessly with the amount of people that were willing to help us out and communicate back and forth, and the amount of people that were willing to reach out and vouch for us at certain places for certain bills and all that stuff. It's really just like absurd. I never would have imagined this, and we're not like a huge band or anything, but I still never imagined we'd get to this point, or at least I'm self-deprecating enough to never have put myself in this mental place, you know? And everything leading up to tour so far has been the most fulfilled musically that I've ever been.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible to hear, and I mean, I think that there's a lot on the horizon for you guys. Because you're just a solid band. So
thank you.
But yeah, Matt, thanks so much for your time talking about all this stuff. It was great to have this conversation and share part of your story.
Likewise, I'm really happy that you reached out to me.
Of course.
I'm really happy to be part of this community. Happy to have the community that we have, and happy to have the support that we have. Thank you.